Okay. Yes. Just turn in the transcription. That's all I need. Yes. It's a trust issue, you know, because it's a matter of you learning to do the work, and it's a matter of you learning to transcribe on your own. So some of you, you know, I mean, I really don't know if you did a video or not, but it sort of shows in your transcription. It'll show in your work. It'll show later on. And it gives you just great experience to know how difficult it can be to pull different types of language, different samples of language, different language sentences, different structures that you might want to look at in a child, and how narrow a language sample can be to show a child's real abilities, unless you do something really, really, you see the child more than one time, and you have a great language sample. So, but for most people, language samples aren't that great because it depends on the child and how the child feels that one day. And in real life, you only have one day. No, Bradley, no, That must have been one time you went to go play with your baby, Bradley. Just turn in the transcription. You can't do the analysis because you don't know how. So right now, I just want to make sure that your, never. I just want to make sure that your transcription is okay. I don't want you to do a transcription and an analysis, and then I tell you, oh, this is terrible. You can't do an analysis on this sample. And that's what I discovered through teaching classes, is that I have to do it step by step for students. Otherwise, they will have a bad grade at the end. So, and I don't want any bad grades. All right, so let's move forward. Shucks, I was supposed to move that. Hold on. Did I put the right one in? I must not have hit save. Okay, so this is where I want to start. I want to do something a little different. You know, we usually start talking, you know, in the lecture about, the last thing we left off, it was cognition, right? Cognition. So let's start a little differently today. Let's talk about something that is fun, grammar. And I know you all love grammar, and you find it to be as fun as I find it. And I do believe we went over grammatical morphemes. These are your grammatical morphemes, so we don't have to do that again. You have 14 grammatical morphemes. And the reason 14 were chosen is because I'm trying to think who's the person. Oh, gosh. Oh, Brown. I think it's Brown. You know, did research about about grammar. You know, you have different camps. You have the syntactical camp, you have the semantic camp, and you have the pragmatic camp. So who is the big person who started the syntactical camp? What's his name? Oh, come on now. The syntactical camp. Chomsky. Very good, very good. And who started branching off from Chomsky and started semantics? And that one I'm not sure I've concentrated on that as much. Fillmore. And then who expanded from Fillmore with semantics? Starts with a B. Bloom. Very good. Bloom is the bigger name now. It's the bigger name. She even has a textbook, big old textbook. Bloom. And then you have pragmatics. So who started the pragmatic era in terms of theorists? Anybody? And pragmatics wasn't called pragmatics. It was called something else. It was an S and an I. Oh, come on. 2 words. Social interactionists. Yes, social interactionists. Remember the social environment, how language is used. So that dealt more with pragmatics, the child requesting, the child demanding, commenting. So social interactionists dealt more with how language is used. So now what we're going to do in terms of your language sample, we're going to look at syntax or grammar. So Brown did some, looked at a bunch of children and found that these normal children developed these 14 grammatical morphemes right here. And he found that they came in a certain order. He followed them over the years, and that they were pretty regular, and that this was the difference between normal children and children who have speech delays. Children who have speech delays will leave off these grammatical morphemes. That was the key. I was like, oh my gosh, this is how I know they have a delay. They leave off grammatical morphemes. So these morphemes could be a word. That would be like a free morpheme. A grammatical morpheme is one that is important, that changes the meaning of the sentence based on the use. So ing would change the tense. You know, plurals changes the number. Prepositions changes the location. So these add some type of change to the sentence structure, and that's why they're called grammatical morphemes. Some of these grammatical morphemes are bound, like ing, meaning they have to be connected to a free morpheme. The word in, a preposition, and on, those words are free morphemes. The rest of these are bound, well, no, not true. ing, s, possessive s, ed. That's it. Those are the bound ones. The rest of these are pretty much standalone, can stand alone, free morphemes. So that's the grammatical morpheme story and why it's important. Now, let me tell you some of the weaknesses behind the grammatical morpheme. I think it was maybe the 70s, and it was kind of refined in the 80s. It was popular in the 80s, so I think it was started in the 70s. Now, let's think about it for children. So what ethnic group do you think Brown used in terms of the children? Just based on the time, white, yes. And what socioeconomic class do you think he used? Also, middle. And do you think he went all over the country? No. So I can't remember. I think it's Wisconsin, but it's the Midwest. Up in the Midwest, that is where speech pathology was born. University of Iowa, the first speech pathology program. And then Wisconsin came up. Iowa, let's see, Wisconsin. What are those other states? Oh, Purdue, Illinois, Northwestern is an old program. Anyway, so Ohio State, I think, is kind of old as well. Ohio State program. So, but it was the Midwest where speech pathology was really born. Iowa was the first, and so if you think about these researchers coming out of the Midwest, that's where these children are coming out of. Now, so therefore, you're going to have some biases. So in terms of these grammatical morphemes, you know, there may be some Southerners that may not use some, they may omit some of these words. There may be some AAE speakers, Appalachian speakers. There may be some New Yorkers, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So you need to think about where the child is from. Remember, these norms, these ideas serve as guides it helps you in making your decision. It is not just etched in stone. For example, when you go to the doctor, excuse me, and they see that you have some type of tumor, and it looks like it is cancerous or whatever, or it may look like it's benign, but they're not really sure until they actually do a biopsy. And with the biopsy, they have all these different guidelines of what makes it cancerous and what makes it not. And then you have some that are ambiguous. So even with the guidelines, there will be something that they're not sure if it's cancer or sure that it's benign, so they have to go in and do a biopsy on another spot of the tissue to see if it becomes more clear cut. So all of these things that I'm giving you are guidelines so that you can make a better diagnosis. But you have to use good judgment in these guidelines. And I just want to say that to you now because I don't know if people will say that to you in the graduate school. I meet too many graduate students who think that because they looked at a norm or they saw something in a test that, oh my gosh, this is the Bible and it's etched in stone and it must be true. So these guidelines help you. That's all they do. But you have to make sure you take the child's characteristics in consideration. All right, so we went over those grammatical morphemes. Am I correct in that? Because, you know, I was in vacation land. Yes, I thought so. I feel so good that I remembered that. You know, I always worry as I get older. Okay, so here is an example of a student who did her analysis and of the grammatical morphemes, and you see this is what she did. She made her own form and she listed them over here on this side. And then she she wrote the utterance right here where she found ing. That was utterance number 50. And the child only said it once. So she only wrote down 50. And then and the child was required to say it. So for example, if it's utterance 50 and the child says, I am eating. So ing, the child was supposed to use it, obligatory. I don't know if you can see that, obligatory, meaning it was required to be used. And the child actually did use it. So that would be 100%. So let's suppose the child says, I am eat. Then you would put obligatory context number 50 because it was supposed to be there. But here you would put a slash. The child didn't use it. And then this would be 0%. All right. So now let's look at number 2. Oh, goodness. Plural. The child used plurals 4 times in utterance number 1, in utterance number 5, in utterance number 6, and in utterance number 11. He was supposed to use it because maybe he said, I have some cookies, I have 2 giraffes, I don't know. And then he used it all 4 times, 100%. So when you look at this, you say, ooh, 100%, 100%. It says to you, wow, he's doing pretty well in plurals. I don't know about ing because you only had 1 example, but at least in that 1 example he used it. You might want to say something like, I will do, you know, another speech sample. Hold on for 1 second. Okay. Oh, obligatory. So obligatory means that it is obligated to be in that position. So the child is obligated according to the adult grammatical rules. So now we're comparing the child to an adult. So an adult says, I am eating. So an adult does not say, I am eat. So the child is required to use ing. in utterance number 50. Then you have to say to yourself, did he use it? And in this case, he did use it. So he gets 100%, because 1 out of 1 is 100%. In plural S, the child was required to use by our American syntactical rules, plural, anytime he says to something or some something, some cookies, 2 dogs, he has to use an S. It's not an option. If the child is to speak adult-like, he has to use an S. So, and it's the moment that requires, it's the sentence. I don't know about the moment, but it is the sentence that requires a child to use an adult morpheme. Yes, morpheme. What is that? Morpheme. Yes. So ing is required whenever you say I am. It's used as progressive tense. So anytime they're using progressive tense, ing is required. And believe me, young kids do it because ing is the very first thing up here. So all of your kids should have, a 3-year-old should be, at 80% or above on ing. So this is it's one of the first grammatical morphemes, so it's a very early grammatical morpheme. Plural S, same thing. All right? It's obligatory if in the sentence that the child is using, he says, I have 2 cookies. He has to use S to be grammatically correct. Oh, now, see, Colleen, why are you going ahead of me, Colleen? Okay. Yes, Colleen, you are right. Very good on that uncontractable auxiliary morpheme. Some people make a mistake on that. And it would also ing. So your child here has 2 grammatical morphemes. That's right. Your child is using 2 grammatical morphemes, so that is great. Oh, shucks. Okay, then. All right, so now look at N. What this tells you here is that this child did not use any prepositions, right? Because she had 0. They didn't use it. Now, what does that tell you? What would that tell me about this language sample? Now, should I assume that this child does not know prepositions because she has a nothing here? Should I say, oh, this child is language delayed? He didn't use prepositions in his language sample. Should I assume that? No, thank you for answering, Colleen. Come on, other class members, help Colleen and Bradley out. And I think it was Kristen. That's right. No, you cannot assume that. What am I going to say if somebody gives me this report? What am I going to think? What do you think I'm going to think? Thank you, Brad. I have to learn to call him Brad. If anybody else trying to answer, oh, Susan's going to come in there. That's right. Well, it could be they didn't take enough utterances, but usually it's the conversation. I blame the therapist. I blame the student. So the student cannot write in this report. If the student wrote in this report, this child does not use prepositions. Okay, how in the world do you know based on a language sample? Do you give the opportunity for the child? Show me in your transcript where there was an opportunity for the child to use a preposition. So you can't say that. That is the reason why people came up with what we called standardized tests, because this is a limitation of a language sample. Think about how much time it takes you to do a language sample, a good one. And if you're working out in the field and you only have 30 minutes to do a diagnostic or 45, how are you going to do, and in a language sample means this on plurals. So people said, no, this will not work. we have to do standardized testing, because a standardized test will test all of these things right here. Yes, language samples, for people who do them, and they rarely do them, language samples are supplements. Well then, Dr. Gibson, you say to yourself, why are you making us do a language sample? If in the real world, people aren't doing them. Because it's a great way for you to learn grammar. It's a great way for you to learn how to do an analysis without being dependent upon a test. It's a great way for you to see how a child puts together a sentence. So just, you know, immerse yourself into this activity, you know. All right, so now possessive S. Let me get my arrow. I always think I have an arrow because I have an arrow, but you can't see my arrow. Possessive S, it was supposed to be used in number 23. It was supposed to be used. So the child probably said, mommy sock, something like that. But because you take context, you know, see, that's how I know. I look at your analysis here, and I'll look at your context to see, is it really possessive? That's why I need the context. Your context should let me know, otherwise I take off point if it's not good enough. But possessive S, sentence, utterance 23, the child was supposed to use possession, but the child did not use it. Here, 0%. Okay? Now let's go down to contractible auxiliary. We have 25, 31, 34. That's where it was supposed to be used according to the grammar of American English, because we're looking at standard English only. So this is a biased analysis for people who speak AAE, for people who come from other countries, who may, you know, not speak standard English because they're just learning English. All of this is going to be biased for those groups of kids. But for people who grew up in standard English speaking homes, this is based on that, on those children. So, and then when did they use it? They only used it in 31 and 34. They did not use it in number 25. Now you might want to look back on your sample and say, now why didn't they use it on 25? And there may be an explanation, maybe not. I don't know. But that makes it 67%. So as you can see, this sample missed out. This person's sample did not have a lot of the 14 grammatical morphemes. And it's a factor of the sample, not the child. Okay? And it could be, Susan, they didn't take enough utterances. You know, I don't know. But they did at least 50. They have found it. They did at least 50 because you can see number 46, number 50. Well, they probably did 75 because they generally, you know, they take the ones in the middle. I see Colleen is writing. Are there any questions about the 14 grammatical morpheme analysis? I guess I'm going to have to call someone. Oh, yeah, it has nothing to do with articulation, so yes. 13 and 14. Where's 13 and 14? Oh, you mean, okay, explain what they are. Okay, let's see. I think I have a great chart here that gives you, oh, shucks, what did I do with it? I can't even miss about it. I'm so upset if I didn't do it. No. Let's go back up. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we'll go through here. I had another one. Oh, good question, Ellen. I'm going to show you in a minute how to do it. Let me answer the other person's question. Where was it? Let me explain 13 and 14. I'll have to figure out where's 13 and 14. I don't have a mark here. Okay. So this must be 14, this must be 13. Okay, uncontractable copula. Here's your example. He was hungry. You can't say he was. You can't contract he was, but you can contract he is. So you have contractible copula would be any of these verbs, is, are, am. I am can become I'm. So it can be contracted. So it is a copula. A copula describes something. It's an adjective or a noun. I mean, if you have the copula here, and then there will be an adjective or a noun following it. So I am hungry. I am a policeman. That type of thing. So then you have uncontractable, uncontractable auxiliary. It's the same thing. It would be the was and the were. Because you can't say I were, you can't contract it. And you see eating, that's what makes it an auxiliary. It has an ing. It's an action verb, makes it an auxiliary versus a copula. Got it? Oh, somebody, let me see. Yes, because this analysis is based on standard English. It is based on the adult form of standard English. So daddy drinking. Now the child on daddy drinking will get credit for ing. But on here, you would have to say the the contractible auxiliary he did not use. So he would have it in both places. So let's say that's number sentence 1, daddy drinking. So you would have a number 1 here and one that he used it. But under contractible auxiliary, you would have a 1 here, but then you wouldn't have a 1 that he used it there. So you only put the 1 here that was obligated, but that he didn't use it. Daddy be drinking. Be isn't considered a copula in terms of it's be verbs, but it would not be considered the copula. So that one he wouldn't get credit for. But what I do is, if it's a cultural difference, then I always put that in my description, that it was a cultural difference. But my job is to teach you how to familiarize you with an analysis of standard English, which is what most of the tests are going to be based on. Well, all of the tests are going to be based on a child's knowledge of adult standard English. And since I'm not showing you a test, I am showing you a sample. And we're doing normal children because that's what the tests are based on, normal children. So do you get that? How if a child said, daddy be drinking, he would get the ing, but he wouldn't get the auxiliary, contractible auxiliary. Now this last one is just a percentage. You just take this column and divide. So here you got 4 out of 4, that's 100. Here they didn't do it, so that's a 0. So what is that? 0 out of 23? Or is it 23? Which one is not a number? 0 out of 23 is 0. Okay, let me finish her question. 8 out of 8, 100. And then here you got 2 out of 3 is 67, or 66.6. That's how they do it. All right, very good. Yeah, and Susan, we went over the grammatical morphemes last week. But anyway, it is lecture 5. All right, any other questions? But if you do have a question, Oh, I'm sorry. But if you do have a question, any other questions regarding grammatical morphemes? Any ones that you need to go over? Okay, I don't see anybody. All right, I think the rest of them are kind of self-explanatory. The ones that people do get confused about, some people don't know the copula versus auxiliary. And if you're one of those people, you need to admit it and, you know, ask me to explain more. Uncontractable copula. Okay. All right, so we'll go here. So here is a sample from a former student. And in terms of the grammatical morphemes, this is what she did here. So for the grammatical morphemes, you do have to make a separate file, but not for MLU, a separate file, because you can't put it on that big thing. Now, what some people did was this. Now, she did an Excel file, and at the top of the Excel file, she had the language sample, and that's what I like for you to have, the language sample. And then at the bottom, she went on ahead and made this table after the language sample. And she wrote this in, and you're going to have to write in your analysis. And this is what she said. According to the percent usage, Junior has mastered the use of plural S. Now, you know, oh, right here. Yes, plural S. So that's right. I would agree with that. I mean, I think, you know, having 4 examples, I think that's pretty good. Although there was 100% usage of ing and articles A and the, there was not, enough obligatory context to confirm his mastery of these grammatical morphemes. I like that she recognized that, so I gave her extra points for recognizing that just because it says 100%, but it doesn't mean anything if you only have 1 example. So I thought that was good. And let's see, the usage of contractible auxiliary is emerging. So she comes here. So he doesn't quite have 100, but she, you know, it's emerging. It's as indicated with the 67%. Also, the usage of possessive S and irregular past could be emerging, but it could not be confirmed because the usage was incorrect. So she even talks about here, possessive S, irregular past, maybe they're coming, but she can't confirm that they're coming because it was not used. Okay, let's see. Overall, he did not use many grammatical morphemes. As a result, now she's going to blame herself, which is good. As a result of using too many closed-ended and WH questions, it was difficult to confirm mastery of Junior's usage of grammatical morphemes. So when I looked at her sample, I always tell the students, as I'm telling you, look at your sample. If you come up blank like this on your grammatical morpheme analysis, and you have a child who is 3 or 4, then it's probably the way you answered the question. So you go back in and you just make note of that I asked too many closed-ended questions like, who is that? What is that? I asked too many of those instead of, tell me more. What do you think about that? Huh, yeah. Sometimes just going, yeah, wow. Things like that, it will get them to talk more and more, and you'll be able to pick up more grammatical morphemes. So this is part of your analysis when you get to that point. If you have not had your language sample approved, you're not at this point. You have to have your language sample approved first. Then you go to this point and do the grammatical morpheme analysis. So this is a grammatical morpheme analysis. And I want you to write a little paragraph letting me know that you know how to interpret this table. Any questions? Let's see if there's another. Oh, no. So we're going to email you. Yes. Transcript only. I think, yeah, transcript, oh, I'm not going to say anything. Transcript only. Yes. Those of you who have had yours approved, I say go for it. To start working on it so that you won't have so much to do in a short period of time while you're also trying to study for exams. Okay. All right, so that's that. That's the grammatical morpheme analysis that you will do. That is syntax. You will also do a second syntactical analysis. Hold on. Oh, I won't do it that way. Oh, I don't know, Tally. Look on the syllabus. It's probably due Sunday. I don't know. When is the transcript due? July 2nd. Okay. All right. So now we'll talk about the MLU, the mean length of utterance. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. I don't want to do that first. Oh, I don't like this one. I just created this PowerPoint today and uploaded it in your thing, but I don't like the way I did it. Okay, MLU, I should give you an introduction first. MLU, you'll have to take notes the old-fashioned way, means mean, M-E-A-N, length of utterance. Mean length of utterance. Now, many speech pathologists will do a mean length of utterance. Again, it is not based on many children. I think the most children may have been like 60 children. I'll have to look that up. 60 children. And what it does, it tells you about the length of a child's utterance. Now, what is an utterance? An utterance could be a word. An utterance could be a sentence. An utterance could be a phrase. So it's whatever your utterances are, how you counted them on your transcript. So you have 50 utterances, 75 utterances. Some of your utterances may be just, uh-oh, that's an utterance. Some of your utterances may sound like, I went to the store yesterday with my mom. That's an utterance. So that's one of the reasons they call it an utterance. So that people will know it's not about the word, or it's not about the sound, or it's not about the sentence. It could be any one of those. And the reason this was developed, because they felt that this predicted or was correlated with a child's grammatical complexity. So this is, again, another syntactical measure. So if you think about an utterance can have several morphemes in it, because remember, an utterance doesn't just have to be a word. So when you're looking at utterances, you're going to count the morphemes. You're going to count the morphemes, the free morphemes and the bound morphemes. And remember, the bound morphemes are those prefixes and suffixes. Okay. All right. So here are the rules for calculating an MLU, a mean length of utterance. So you want to select a portion of the transcript that you think is representative. Oh, a child's grammar, they think it's grammar or syntax. And you'll find out in a little bit why they think that, Susan. So look at the child's transcript and choose the part that you think is the most representative. Now, I told you to do something like 50 to 75. I didn't tell you to do 100, you know. So what you're going to do is to look at your transcript and try to choose a portion of that that is the most representative. I would like for you to choose, well, 50. I'd like you to choose 50 for the MLU. Other people do 100 for the MLU, but this is a class, so that's too much. Even you have to do like 150 utterances or something, you know, or 200. So what you're going to do is have a total of 50 utterances, right? And you're going to try to choose the best of those utterances. So, but you can't skip around. It has to be consecutive. So you might want to, you know, start at utterance 5. Or you may need to start at utterance 12 and then go down to utterance 62. It depends on how many utterances you got from the child. If you only got 50, then you're going to have to do your 50 because this is just an exercise. And these children don't have language impairment, so we're not worried about any kind of diagnosis. But if you were doing a child with an impairment, you want to get as many utterances as you can because you want a fair analysis of what the child, a fair measurement. So now, the utterances within the child's speech, the morphemes that are unintelligible, you can't use. You can only use utterances that are completely intelligible. All right? So that's important to know. Let's see. All right, let's see. Number 3. Look at this. Well, you'll have to skip that one. You'll have to omit it. And then go down to the next one. You have to omit, even if it's in between, you know, it messes up your consecutive nature. You'll have to still skip that one. So, yeah. That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before, but that makes sense. Because I said do the ones that are consecutive, and then, but what if it is unintelligible there? Yeah. Okay. All right, I can see. Who is this? Is this one of my people who said that they are? I hate that the name goes up. No, this was Susan. No, so it wasn't. I thought it was Brad. Okay, now number 3. Let's see, Colleen. You're going to have to be careful of this. Only assign morphemes to repetitions in the most complete form. So, example, my dad is big. You only can count my dad is big. So, Colleen, you know, notice in your child, that child has a lot of repetitions. I don't know if that's normal fluency in terms of, you know, what's going on with the child, but you can't count this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 morphemes. It can only be counted as 4 morphemes. So do you get that? So a lot of repetitions in the same sentence. Mama, 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 mama. You just can't do it. Because then it makes it sound like the child is a more complex speaker than he is, but he's saying the same word over and over. You see? All right. All right. Okay, number 4, do not count fillers like, oh. Do not count if they're singing, sing-song repetitions, you know, that kind of thing. You don't want to count those. You count words like hi, yes or yeah, and no. Okay? This will count as 1. It's a 3 morpheme. So it count as 1. The word hi. Okay. And look, these rules are in content. Okay? I think they're under assignment. Treat your compound words like pocketbook, high school. All kids will say stuff like all gone. 1 word. Now, here's an exception to that all gone. Well, usually if they're 4 or 5, maybe they're not using all gone. If you feel like that this word means 2 different words to the child, then sometimes therapists will count it. But for you, let's count it as one word. I don't want to confuse students. So just one. Even though you see two morphemes, but they mean, their meaning is one word. And we can't, and the researchers felt that children may not understand it as two different words. They understand it as a whole. So they don't want to give them more credit than needed. Let's see. Assign one morpheme to words like herself, nothing. So you don't want to count ing here. It's not progressive. Some people make that mistake. That's not progressive. So all of these would be one word. Okay. Treat proper nouns and ritualize reduplications like choo-choo, night-night as single words. Bow wow, those animal sounds. Single words. One morpheme. If, however, the child says choo-choo train one time, and the next time in his utterance he says train without the choo-choo, then I would count this as two morphemes. Do you understand? But if I only see choo-choo train everywhere, and it's always choo-choo train connected as one, then one morpheme. I hate uh-oh as in what? Is that uh-oh like they dropped something? Or you mean Oh, uh-oh like they dropped something. I count that as one because it does have some meaning. It's kind of like, uh-oh, I dropped something. Uh-oh, and you look down. It has some meaning to it. Yes, but one. Because they're using it as a whole. Unless they tell you not to. Because let me tell you, you can get different speech pathologists, and they'll evaluate things. They interpret the rules differently. Assign only one morpheme to diminutive forms of words like doggy. Don't say, oh, he added a gee. Mommy. Funny. And you say, I don't know why you would do Billy, but they gave that as an example. But I can see why people might think funny because they say, oh, fun. Then they added NY. But funny by itself is really just a single word, a single morpheme. And they call these diminutive forms because they feel that the child has learned these words as a whole and did not really understand that there's two different forms. Okay. Assign one morpheme to auxiliary verbs, so will, have, may. So if the child says will eat, there you have two. So the will gets a morpheme, and eat gets a morpheme as the main verb. Assign only one morpheme to canative forms, and like gonna, wanna, have to. So you can, when you translate that, you say, oh, have to, that means have to. But for the child, we can't say that means have to. So it only counts as one. Okay. Assign one morpheme to all inflectional affixes. And that would be plurals, possessions, third person singular, all of these grammatical morphemes, comparative ER, oh, I forgot, here is ED, EN, EST. So this is in addition to the free morpheme. So a word like, what's a word with ED? Somebody help me. I can't think of one. Talked, T-A-L-K-E-D, that would be two morphemes, right? But if a child said it wrong, like write it still has a meaning for him, so you do one morpheme. Even though it's even though this one this is the incorrect word. Now, Brandon, in your example, the B, you would count that as a morpheme because that's a different analysis than the other analysis. So you want to count anything that is meaningful to the child as a morpheme. You got it? So they be eating, oh, talked is 2 morphemes, right? So they be eating would be one, I mean, you tell me, they be eating. How many morphemes? Right, very good. See how easy, isn't it easy? All right, so inflections on gerunds. I hope you know what a gerund is. Do you know what a gerund is? Oh, please say yes. A gerund, oh, I didn't, no one said yes. Okay. A gerund is a verb used as a noun. For example, fishing is boring to Dr. Gibson. Fishing, in this case, is not the verb. Fishing is the subject. So it is a verb used as a noun, which makes it a gerund. Okay? I am fishing. Fishing is a verb. It's am fishing. It's telling you what I am doing. I am fishing. So, you get it now? All right, good. Oh, gerund. How do you spell gerund? G-E-R-U-N-D. Right there. And here it is up here, gerund. Also, let me tell you, I have students calling me or texting me all the time, but please, not too many. And they say, Dr. Gibson, I need help on this grammar. And then they say, is this a gerund? Is this a grammatical morpheme? What is this? You know, the copula. So and I just tell them yes, no. You know, I tell you the answer. This is your exercise. This is just, you know, you learn because you will see it again on the test, and you'll have to pick it out yourself. So, you know, just I don't mind if you need to contact me. I don't care if you call each other and ask each other about your different language samples. If you're unsure about, you know, counting the morphemes, if you're unsure about the 14 grammatical phonemes, you can contact me, or you can contact one of your classmates, or you can get together in a room and, you know, and ask each other, type in the sentence and ask each other to help you out. You can say to me, Dr. Gibson, we need to meet on a Friday or whatever day for an hour, and I'll meet with you for an hour, and the class can come and you can give me your sentences, and I can say, okay, class, let's do it together. So we can, you know, this is a learning exercise for you. So please, you know, use that as a resource if you don't quite get grammar. I mean, some of you have been out of school a long time, and let me tell you, it's one of those things you want to forget. So, okay, for morphemes that are irregular past tense, 1. So just 1. Even the word, if they use it incorrectly, like swammed instead of swam, 1, not 2, even though you see the ED, because swam isn't really a word. So but they want to recognize that the child maybe they haven't quite learned how to use it yet, so it's not penalizing them for not knowing how to use it, because all we're trying to do is to count the morphemes, not whether something is correct or incorrect. That's very different than the other analysis. Okay, assign 2 morphemes to negative contractions like can't, don't, and won't. Only if there is evidence in the transcript that they have used the word not. Right, no, you can't count because fitted isn't a word, so you would count it once. I'm sorry, as a 1 morpheme. Yeah. So if you don't have any evidence that this child understands negation somewhere in your language sample, you can't give them credit for negation here. So these will only count as one. However, if you see somewhere where they separated and they said, I cannot do that, they've used the word not. It is not. It is so. It is not. It is so. You know, you see it somewhere. I always look for things to give children as much credit as possible. Then you can count can't as 2. And I will check if I see that you have that I see the word can't in there in your MLU count. Then I will check to see if I see not anywhere in your transcript. If I don't, I need to see that you counted can't as 1. All right? Okay. Assign 2 morphemes to all non-negative contractions. So I'm. This would be 2. We're assuming that they know how to contract and not contract, so that they understand I am and I. He is, 2. So they're allowing you to count these as 2. They're non-negative. But because they think that negation using not, they know that negation using no is early, but negation using not comes later, so they just don't want to overestimate the child's ability unless you have evidence that they can use not. All righty. Common derivational affixes should be assigned their own morphemes. So common affixes include RE, UN, LY, FUL, and EN. So those would be 2. So like if the child says, what would be LY? Softly, then that would be 2. But do not assign morpheme to things such as affixes as AL in already or A in around, because children generally learn those as one word and not that they're adding something in there to change the meaning. So a lot of rules on the MLU. That's why I want you to make sure. That's why I want you to go ahead and get started. And I think I urged everyone to please go ahead and get your transcripts in. I urged that, in terms of, what was it, the first week, to go ahead and get started. Find that person, get started. And, I guess it's easier to procrastinate. But anyway, it may be hard to find a kid. I don't know. But you need to let me know if you can't find one. Don't wait till the last minute, because I'm going on vacation, so, I'm assuming, since I haven't heard from anyone, that you have a child or you have access to something. Okay. All right, so here's an example. Right here, C points to a picture in a photo album and says, there, Daddy. So you're going to count the morphemes, and you see 1 for there and 1 for Daddy. So your morphemes here would be 2. Now, here, C puts baby doll in crib and covers her. You see how the context is important? It's really going to be important for me. Go, night-night. Night-night here will only be considered as 1. So again, you have 2 morphemes. Okay. So those are a couple of examples. Now, look at this here, their daddy. Let's think about the grammatical morphemes in this utterance, their daddy. This looks like a 2.5-year-old child, okay? So this is a younger child. You're doing older children, so you probably won't have this issue, as many issues. Their daddy. What is the adult version of their daddy? How would you say their daddy? There's daddy, right. There is daddy. Well, no, you can't change her word. Her word is there. There is daddy. Yes. There is daddy. So that would be a there's daddy. So tell me, if you had to do the grammatical morpheme analysis, what grammatical morpheme do you see here? Oh, yes, Colleen, you did miss it. Oh, hold on. Let me go back to that about, let's see, where was it? I probably skipped over it because I probably thought it was obvious. So I just probably skipped. That's probably my fault. Let me see. I saw it. Right here. It's right here in number 10. Number 10. I did skip over it because I was just like, I don't need to read all of that. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. All right. So, what grammatical morpheme? Nope. No, Susan. Try again. Y'all like the word contractible. Nobody's gonna try it? Come on now, where's Brad? Brad always answers. There you go. Okay, which one, you need to complete it. I guess I did say contractible. Contractible copula. Yes, do you see why it's a copula and not an auxiliary though? There is daddy. An auxiliary follows a verb because it's a helping verb. Oh, this is how you can remember it. Auxiliary is a helping verb. Remember helping verbs back in the day? That's what the auxiliary is. So you got to have a verb after it. After. You got it? Oh, I need somebody to say yes or okay so I can move forward. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now, go night. Oh. That's right. Yes. Yes. Anybody else? Before I ask them the next question, anybody else have questions on morphemes, counting morphemes? And basically, once you start doing them, once you get your language sample and you start doing it, then of course you will ask questions then. It's kind of like, oh, I kind of know what she's talking about, but I don't. It's not until you put your hands in it. Then you will have questions. So the next time we meet next week, you'll probably have some questions for me. So I will leave room for questions because this is the analysis part. From now on, we'll be talking about, and analyzing your transcript. That's okay. Okay, now let's look at the second example. Go night-night. Okay, what are the grammatical morphemes here? Anybody want to give it a go? Don't know? Don't care? Hint? Okay. None. Trick question. Sorry. I like doing that. Yeah, but good, Susan. But Susan, I mean, we could make one, I am going night-night, but here, that actually, look, you have to go, no, you have to look at the thingy, puts baby doll in crib and covers her. Baby, you can say, babe, she go night-night. So, so none, it's still none. I don't think, oh, it's third person. It could be third person. She goes night-night. She goes night-night. Phone a friend. What does that mean? Phone a friend, Lauren. Yes, Bradley. Yes, this night-night is, yes. So this one I would just skip over. So there will be, I only brought this up, there will be some utterances that may not have a grammatical morpheme. And don't get nervous. It's okay. It's okay. You don't want to create a grammatical morpheme where there is none. So you don't want to change the child's sentence. That's why you got to look up here, what was the context? Okay? So if the context doesn't suggest that it's obligatory. Here, it is obligatory. So here, the child would get a 0% usage because they didn't use it. Okay. Skip that. Okay. Here, this I'm not going to go over this because it's too small, but this is in your PowerPoint, and you can read over it. It just gives you some other rules that may help. It's the same rules, but they may have a little more details on some of their rules. Sometimes different authors will put in, extra examples. So that's why I put this in here. I like that they added this. Is your MLU representative of the child? You might want to add that to your analysis and say it's not representative of this child's skills, and blame yourself, because usually you are the problem. It could be your materials that you brought in. It could be that the topic was too narrow. You stayed on one topic, so it didn't allow for the child to do long sentences, or to use a lot of different forms that had prefixes and suffixes and things like that. So it could be, the sample. Maybe the child did a lot of self-repetitions. So if he did that, then it could be that the child does speak in longer utterances, but it just wasn't captured in this particular sample because he was constantly repeating himself. So, and then here's the other problem. You have too many questions. So he's just answering your question. And anytime a child answers your question, it's always going to be shorter than if he's just talking on his own. So I just included that in here, and we're going to move forward. So once all the morphemes have been counted for each utterance, the total number of morphemes will be divided by the total number of utterances. So I want you to do 50. So however many morphemes you have, it will be divided by 50. So if you have, 200 morphemes divided by 50, that's going to be an MLU of 4.0, right? All right. So now let's see if I have. Uh-oh, I forgot. Oh, here it is. Now, for the MLU, on your transcript, this looks recognizable, right? So you have all of this information for those of you who turned in a transcript. And if it's approved and make the changes that I asked you to make, then I want you to go and add another column right behind the utterance number. And I want you to put MLU. So the child, the jungle gym, she counted 1, 2, 3 utterances. Play, 1 utterance. You see, let's see. She did not count the she counted and slide, 2 utterances. Let's go to one that's a little longer. Let's go down here to number 7. She tells 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3, everyone 4, 2 is 5, B is 6, quiet is 7. There you go. So that's how she calculated hers. See if I have any questions. Trying to look over. All right. So now that's how I want you to present it to me. And at the end, I didn't give that to you. So I'll have to give that to you next time we meet that picture. At the end of your transcript, I want you to put MLU 4.0, 4.26. And then I want you to write a little paragraph about the analysis, and I'll give you an example of that. Oh, okay. Let's go to number 7. She, 1, tells, 2, 3, everyone, 4, 2, 5, B, 6, quiet, 7. And she wrote 7 over here. Okay. So this is what this should look like. And that way, I don't have to be going back and forth. I can look right here at your utterance and look right here at the MLU. And then at the end of this, you're going to, at the end of your 50 utterances, you're going to do the grammatical morpheme analysis and make that table. Right here. Make that table and then write a little summary. All right, now let's figure out how do we interpret an MLU. Well, it takes a long time. That's why I'm not sure I'll get through all the PowerPoints, because this part takes a long time. I don't want the class to just be about lecture. I really want you to actually do something. So I can tell you, many people won't do this with undergrads. Not undergrads, I'm sorry, prereqs. You'll have to correct me. Some of you may be undergrads in here, I don't know. Sometimes undergraduates do take this course in our department. But they all shy away from me once they say, oh, Dr. Gibson. But you don't know that as a prereq. Dr. Gibson's going to make us do a language sample. I'm going to go somewhere else because she doesn't make us do a language sample. She just makes us memorize the chapters. So, all righty. So there you go. Yes, y'all, all of you were so innocent. You were just led to slaughter. Okay. All right. Now, let's, it is practical. And when you get to grad school, let me tell you, your eyes won't be all wide open and lost. The prereqs who come from my class, at other universities, the students are so lost. I'm just like, what are they teaching them in these other universities? The prereqs who come from my class, they all tell me and say, thank you, Dr. Gibbs. Thank you. Because you're going to have to do this in our graduate program, and I would think other graduate programs as well. And they actually do more. I'm just trying to give you a little teaser and that you understand how to do an MLU, that you understand how to do some of these analyses, and therefore you're, you know, a little bit ahead of the ball. Okay. All right, now, I want you to look at this. You're going to get your MLU, right? And I suppose you have older children, so your children should be somewhere like 4.4 MLU, that type of thing, 4.4. And look, at 48. So, at 48 months. So now let's say you have a child is what age? Let's see, what are you? Who did one already? Colleen. I'm sorry, because I can see your name, Colleen, first. I'm not ignoring the other people who have done theirs. How old is your child? Is your child old? How old is your child in months? Because I don't want to have to figure out the month. Oh, your child is young. So almost 4. So your child is going to be here at 48. Because look up here. It is minus or plus 1 month. So here we're talking about 47, 48, 49. You get that? 45 is 44, 45, 46. 51 is 50, 51, 52. So you're going to look here, Colleen, at your child at 48. Now your child should have an average MLU around 4.4, okay? Around 4.4, but there is something called a standard deviation. Standard deviation. The standard deviation tells you how much above 4.4 and how much below 4.4 a child who is 47 to 49 months should be on an MLU. So here it is. They give it for you. You don't even have to do anything but look right over here. So your child, Colleen, should have an MLU between 3.46 and 5.34 and is considered typical or normal. People don't like to say normal anymore. typical. There you go. That's how you do it. Now, let's say, okay, I'm going to say this, and I want you to tell me, at what age this child falls under. A child scored an MLU of, 3.84. I'll write it down. This is going to be interesting answer. Oh, that's not very good. Yeah, it's called. Isn't that awful? Yes. Now, what does that tell you about this instrument? That's right, that there is a range of development. It's a range of development, and children can still be normal. So I don't want you to get all OCD that the child didn't do blah, blah, blah. And let me tell you, there are so many speech pathologists who will look at that MLU, and so many students, because I'm going to have you in what class? I may not have you. But if I have you in another class called multicultural, we're trying to get rid of some classes, multicultural literacy, I will give you an example of a child, and I will say his MLU is blah, blah, blah. There are so many students who tell me that he has a language delay. Because all the students do, they look at this mean. Okay. Now, what I do want to say is this. A child who is 51 months and his MLU is here at 3.8 or something, you want to look at other things because he's functioning on the lower end. He's functioning on the lower end. So there may be a mild issue going on, so you want to make sure that you investigate further. But this just tells you the variability of the MLU. But what you're going to do is to try to find your child's need. You're going to look at your child's age first. So you're not going to give me a range, people. You're going to tell me how old your child is. That's what we're going to do. If your child is 54 months, then you're going to look under the 54-month thingy. And you're going to look here. You're going to look here. And you're going to tell me that he falls in the upper level of his ability of mean length of utterance. And are you going to tell me he falls at the lower? Okay? Or if he doesn't even meet his age range, that he is performing more like a 51-month-old. You know, that type of thing. I mean, so if you're having trouble, that's why I'm here. You'll ask me the question. And then we'll, try to work together on that. Here's another chart. This is a chart I had in graduate school. So this is the old book right here. Ooh. I like this one because it breaks it up just a little bit more. So you get your MLU, and you can say, oh, he did a 5.4. Here's the age for 5.4, 53.6, 53 months. And here's the range. Look, almost 4 to 5, like almost a year, a little over a year range in terms of it being typical. So you can use either chart. Just let me know which chart you're going to use. This one is Miller. Oh, it didn't take, but it's in your, I think it's in your content. This is Miller. And this one, oh, this is Miller too. So it doesn't matter. Use either one because both of these are Miller. This is just a shortened version of Miller. Now, those of you who want to really be very precise, you can use this formula right here. My graduate students, when I used to teach, I don't teach language development now. I used to make them use the formula to get the exact predicted MLU for their child and then see if it matched. So this is the predicted MLU. You use this formula and put the child's age in. It'll tell you what your child's predicted MLU should be, Colleen. Let's see, you said 47 months. So you just multiply, you multiply 0.103 times 47 and then subtract 0.548 because that's negative 0.548. And then add it to plus whatever this is right here. Well, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Forget it. You multiply this 1.103 times age, and then you take that negative 0.548 and subtract it. I was right the first time. What time is it? This is something that I might ask you to do on a bonus question. So, because I think it's kind of fun to do. All right. Let's move forward. All right. Hold on, my eyes hurt. How do you interpret MLU? If a child has a reduction in utterance length, it can be indicative of some type of syntactical problem. It could be indicative of a problem with your language sample, how you collected it. Or it could be an indicative of motor speech problems because they've left out some morphemes, right? It could be indicative of autistic-like rote language learning, so they didn't pick up some of these morphemes, or atypical developmental patterns if they're shorter than usual. So it is just like a screener, and once you see that it's shorter, then you look closer. If you see that it's really long, then you just say, I'm not worried about this child. But if it's short, you have to look closer. But if it's really long, then you just say, good, I don't have to worry. So there you go. So that's how a lot of people use it. It is not to be used to diagnose. You can just skip this. You can look at this on your own, because I may ask you to do it as a bonus. Now, I don't want to go over it. Okay, Brad is asking a question. Oh, yeah, age in months. Oh, Bradley has asked a good question. So, your child has a short MLU. Well, you got the MLU from its language sample. So then you look at the language sample and see why is it short. And you look at grammatical morphemes. One of the reasons that an MLU is short is because the child is not using the grammatical morphemes. The child isn't using ing, right? So you're not going to count it. The child's not using plurals. The child's not using possession. And if you see a number of these grammatical morphemes missing, then, and it's a short MLU, and the child is a standard English speaker, then you want to give them a test. So what a lot of people do, they don't do language samples. They give them the test first. But as students, I make you do language samples. Because then you can ask me questions like this, like Brad. Oh, who's asking this question? Oh, Brad again. Okay. All right, so, Brad. All right, now, you've got to be very careful. When you get into a graduate program, you're going to take a course called Multicultural Literacy, where you have to become sensitive to what is considered a poor environment. So you don't want to, I just want to make sure, I mean, I'm sure this isn't you, I'm just bringing this up for everyone, because we all tend to think if it's low income, then it's going to be a poor language environment. That has not necessarily been proven to be true, that there is a poor language environment if the child is in a low income. So you can't assume that the environment is poor. The only thing you can do is to look at what the child is doing right there in front of you. And then you discuss with the parent how the parent can help. So instead of suggesting poor environment, what you suggest is that the research has shown that talking to the child more, engaging with the child, playing with the child more, reading with the child more. So that's how you handle those kinds of situations. There are people, many of our students who have specific language impairment come from middle class homes. The students who have not been exposed is probably what, that's right, that's true. So it could be, that's right. So the environment, but when people say poor environment, generally it's the connotation is that it is, low income. Hold on. Hey, Yana? Wait, so in those cases, sometimes these children will score like mildly delayed, and if you think it is because of the child needing more exposure, then then what you will have to do is, refer the child to preschool. That's what I have done. I refer the child to preschool and reevaluate in about 6 months. It will show, for example, if a child doesn't know colors on a test and he doesn't know numbers on a test, and I say, okay, how many points did that take away from the child? Did it take away 4 points? Now let's suppose he went to preschool and learned his colors and numbers. I put the 4 points back in. This is what I do, on a worksheet. I said, does that child then fall within the normal range? If that child falls within the normal range after I make that adjustment, then my referral to the mom isn't to come to me, but to go to a preschool, a good quality preschool. Now the test scores, I have to keep the test scores the same because you're not to modify a test. However, you use your judgment and your interpretation as to whether those test scores are valid. And I always say, I'll tell the mom these test scores aren't valid because once the child knows colors and numbers, he's going to score within the normal range. Let's let him go to a preschool and learn those kinds of things, and you can bring him back to me, and I will see how he has developed. Does that make sense? Because you are going to get children who aren't familiar with your test, so that doesn't necessarily mean that they have a language impairment. Some kids haven't really been taught how to sit down and point to pictures, That's a cultural, or not necessarily cultural, that's kind of a environmental kind of thing. It's not really a brain thing. It's not a language issue. Remember, we're looking for pathology. We're not looking for kids who might need need a preschool teacher. We're looking for kids who actually have problems with learning language, not children who hadn't been exposed. A nativist may disagree with what? A nativist believes that a child has the capability of learning language even if they come from a poor environment. It is the social interactionist that makes the environment really, really important, and behaviorists. gosh, we got more. Take his food and take it and throw it out if he hadn't eaten it. You know what I mean? Because it's attracting them. Oh no, put some milk in it.
I mean, I have to clean. I mean, the bowl is filled with eggs.
Oh, take it outside then. Take the whole thing outside. Anybody? I thought Bradley was writing something else. Hold on. Okay, nothing else? No other questions? Oh, good, thanks. Okay. All righty. I'm not going over that. That. All righty. So now I'm going to give you, we're not going to do that. Well, you can do that. Oh, here's the example. Okay, here's an example of your write-up. At the time, the language sample was, now you don't have to write it up exactly like this person, all right? But this gives you an idea. And you're not in graduate school yet. So some of your wording might be a little different. It's okay. I'm not going to teach you wording. At the time the language sample was taken, Junior was 47 months old. The calculated MLU for this child is 2.84. I mean, that would concern me at first. The calculated MLU indicates that he uses shorter utterances and fewer morphemes than children his age. Now, she didn't say anything. Well, okay. According to the Rutherford text, she used the Rutherford text, and that's a graduate book. You don't have it. You can just say according to the Miller's norms. Or you can just say according to the norms Dr. Gibson gave us. I don't care. The normal range of MLU is 3.46 through 5.34. I'd like for you to change the word normal to typical. But it doesn't. I said I wasn't going to worry about writing. Okay, his MLU falls a little below the normal range. However, this is not indicative of a language disorder. It is concluded, I'm struggling with the writing here. It is concluded that the low MLU is not accurate due to the sampling. And that's what I told her. The reasons are the sample, it should be the sample, did not, it should be the examiner did not use enough open-ended questions, too many WH questions, and more activities and toys may have helped. I did not go over the way she wrote it. I just wanted to make sure she had the content. So change it to make yours flow grammatically a little better. But the thing is, she wrote in the reason as to why she thinks this child, as MLU was a 2.84. Even the grandmother stated that he talks more usually. So I think he was a little shy around her. So you want to note that too. You want to ask the parent, is this typical? You know, if it's going to be low, is this typical? You know, in terms of his conversation or her conversation, if the parent says, well, you know, usually they talk a little bit more, you know, with me than he's talking with you, then you know that your sample may not be representative. It may not be a good representation of this child's mean length of utterance. So you don't want to call a child, you know, that this child may have a disorder, or you go and investigate more because your sampling was off. All right. So because of all of those reasons, of children being quiet, not bringing the right materials, and time constraints, speech pathologists at the school system or even in private practice rarely do language samples any longer. But students still have to learn them. So there you are. And that's the example she gave. Okay. Any questions on your analysis? If I need to go over it again at another time, I am very happy to go, you know, to quickly go over it again at another time. If you have questions, if you need a session where we only talk about analysis, I'm very happy to do a session Not, it had to be on a different day. That kind of thing. It won't be on our class night. Because I doubt if I'm ahead of schedule. Because right now I feel like I'm behind. Okay, any questions? All right, so we're going to go back to the lecture. Hold on. I think this is where we left off. I think I'm right. I think I just copied where I mean, we left off a little later than that, but yeah, that's it. So I did copy it. Very good. I hope it doesn't seem hard. Does it sound hard to you? Oh, that was a different nope, wasn't it, Kristen? I was going to say, Kristen said no. Okay, not too bad. All right. It will take some getting used to. Yes. But that is why you signed up for the class. Right? All right. So now let's go back to our lecture in terms of where we left off. I know we talked about Piaget. So I think we left off here, right? Like early perceptual development, something like that. Ooh, early perceptual. But I'm gonna back it up a little bit, just a little bit. What time is it? 7:03. Woo! Oh, summary. Well, I hope I put that one in here. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. Okay. So I'm backing it up to this. I just want to review because these are very important cognitive concepts. So you need to know these words: object permanence, causality, and means ends. You really need to know these words. Means ends is an extension of causality. So they're sort of similar. You need to know what imitation is. Play, why that's important, because it provides opportunities for children to problem solve. Communication. Communication is a conceptual development that contributes to the child's language ability. So communication isn't language. Communication is beyond that. Communication could be a gesture, could be a head nod, an eye wink. It could be speech, and it doesn't necessarily, have to be that. So it contributes. The reason language develops, according to the social interactionists, is because of the need to communicate. And probably according to all of them, it's the need to communicate that is why people develop language and speech. Not according to Piaget, Bradley, that when you leave, you're gone. You're gone. I mean, you're not, you don't exist. According to Piaget, I mean, I can't say that that's a fact. That is Piaget's theory, yes. You don't have to agree with it. But when you return, you exist again. Yeah, let me tell you, all of these are theories. Until we can get into the head and until we can get into the head of a child, you can always find an exception to the rule, and you can always develop theories on the back of other theories and improve on them. And that's really what people want people to do. Actually, that's what ASHA wants speech pathologists to begin to do. If you think about it, think about these people and their backgrounds. Have I said anybody is a speech pathologist? Isn't that something? We're borrowing all of this information from other fields, psychologists, linguists, psycholinguists, you know. And so Bradley and others, you know, if you're interested, you can develop your own model for how children learn language. Bradley, you have the perfect opportunity. You have a little infant there. You can start doing diaries, start videotaping her every move, her every sound, and create based on, and then nobody reinvents the wheel. You can pick the theory you think you agree with the most, and then see how your child fits and how your child may differ, and then write something up about that. And then after you do that, then you take that model and look at somebody else's child and see how they fit your model. Do you see what I'm saying? That's just basically how they did it. And then you get a grant where you can and hire people to follow all of these other children. So that would be great. Yes, and that was always my theory for all of my children. Okay. All right. So for cognition, what I want you to think, when I say cognition, I want you to think problem solving. I want you to think thinking. Cognitive skills, intelligence, problem solving, thinking. Okay? And according to Piaget, it is cognitive skills that determine your language ability. So if you are, you know, this person who has high levels of abstract thinking and cognitive abilities, then your language should be advanced. Now, can anybody give me an example of an exception of that, where there is a flaw? High intelligence, high language. There you go. I was thinking more in terms of autism, Asperger's. Well, if they have low auditory processing skills, sometimes their IQ, they won't do as well on a IQ test because they don't understand some of what is being asked of them because their auditory processing is off. So usually, you know, unless you're speaking of something very specific, Susan, because auditory processing is so general, big. But, you know, you wouldn't know that. You're just beginning. But, so yes, there are some people with very high IQs and with Asperger's, very good cognitive skills, problem-solving skills, but their language was delayed, or they're pragmatics. They may have language and vocabulary, but they don't know how to use it well or communicate well with others. So, you know, that's one of the flaws. There are several flaws in all theories. So I just want you to know that. None of them are perfect because we are imperfect ourselves. Okay, children learn to interpret actions of others. Children learn how to communicate in their environment using symbols, which are entities that are used to represent another entity. So these are what they call words. Entities used to represent another entity. Like the word dog is used to represent the animal dog. Anyway. So now, in order for infants or babies to be able to do this, they have to develop perceptually. And you know, perceptual has to do with our senses, our sense of taste, touch, vision, hearing, smell. And growth, I remember saying this. Didn't I already say this on another slide? I remember talking about myelination. Growth of your nerve cells in the brain. And as a child has a very positive, nurturing environment, the nerve cells make all these connections. And in these connections, the child can get shortcuts on, shortcuts on where they may store information. So instead of going a long way, they now can go a shorter way and they can retrieve the word faster. And also, just biologically, the neuron just gets thicker. So children who have, you can't overstimulate. I mean, everything, if you do too much of anything, too little of anything is really bad. But, with the right amount of stimulation, the neurons grow. They grow this fiber tissue that insulates the axon, which then is called myelination, which carries the information in lightning speed from one part of the brain to another part of the brain, and then from the brain to muscles, to muscle tissue, whether it is your articulators or whether you're trying to run or write. Myelination is extremely important. There are diseases where myelination gets destroyed. The protective layer around the axon it deteriorates, and therefore the neurons cannot communicate with each other because they communicate with the axon. Axon is communicating with the neuron, either the neuron's body or the dendrite of the neuron. So the axon is communicating with another neuron, and the myelination is destroyed around the axon. Then the signal gets slower and slower and slower until there is no signal, especially if it's a degenerative disease. And so the person, it may affect their talking, their walking, because it affects muscles, information to the muscles. So every part of your body outside the brain, when the brain communicates, outside is communicating to muscles in your face, muscles in your mouth, muscles in your hands, muscles in your feet. So if myelination is destroyed, you can't operate any longer. One of the diseases that you know of quite well is multiple sclerosis. That's so eventually people who have multiple sclerosis, it depends on where the myelination is deteriorating in the brain, which part of the brain is deteriorating, as to whether or not, how soon it will affect speech. So some people's speech aren't as affected as others. Some people, if they're walking, some if they're writing. But since it's degenerative, eventually it affects everything. So myelination is very important in terms of the growth of the nerve cells. And babies develop thick myelination, protective myelination. They have to have stimulation for growth. If the children aren't stimulated, then growth does not reach its potential. There are two types of stimulation, the perceptual and cognitive stimulation. And we just talked about the perceptual. Perceptual is what the child sees, what the child hears, what the child smells. In terms of speech, it's what the child hears. Loudness, pitch, complexity. Those are the things that the child hears. Of the sound. Those different acoustic parameters. Cognitive stimulation. Here the child develops a relationship between what the child is seeing or hearing or feeling or tasting and a referent that has been stored somewhere in the child's brain. Now that referent, you know, when they don't have anything, then all referents are new. And it's through repetition and hearing a referent over and over again that it gets stored into memory. So when the child hears a referent that it recognizes, it will evaluate and compare the referent, and it says, oh, this is something I know. It's familiar. However, if it's something that they do not know and it is a new stimulus, the child will compare the new stimulus to what they already know and say, oh, this is something different than what I already know. And so then the process becomes that they will store the new referent, but only if they hear that new referent several times. And it doesn't have to be 1,000,000 times. It can be 3 or 4 times if it's very meaningful for the child. If it's not meaningful for the child, it's going to take more time. But if it's meaningful for the child, then it takes only a few times for the kid to pick it up, like 3. It doesn't take long at all. Yes. So perceptual cognitive stimulation. Right. So it's this piece of information that I just told you where we believe that the child uses a stored referent and compares it to the new referent to decide that this is new. You have to have something, you compare it to decide that this is different, so I'm going to store it. But it has to be meaningful to the child for them to store it after only a few exposures. Okay, that's what our therapies are based on: making new information meaningful, because then it's more likely to be stored. The infant or the child begins to learn something called habituation, so that they can learn new things. They don't want to keep things so cluttered that they have to bring up all these old things all the time to learn new things. So what happens is that the child doesn't have to work so hard to bring up something they've already learned, because they come to expect certain words for certain items, certain words in a certain context. So they don't have to use as much of their working memory. If they're not using as much of their working memory, then they have room in that working memory to learn something new. Children who have language delays, they have a reduced working memory, and they can't, their habituation, they can't pull back from what they already know to pick up the new thing. So they maintain what they already know. They're not expanding. Normal children, because of habituation, learn to use their working memory more efficiently. And with habituation, they don't have to pay attention to the stuff they already know as they're learning the new stuff. It's like whenever you first go to a place and you hear all of these sounds, and you're like, what's that? I mean, you're trying to pay attention over here, but then there's a new sound. You go, what's that? And then you missed what happened over here, right? But when you habituate, the sound is like my air conditioning just came on. I pay no attention to it, and I can maintain my thought with you, even though my air conditioner just went boom, that type of thing. So habituation is like a clock ticking in the background, Susan. I know that was from something else, but it's a good example. So that is very important in terms of learning, being able to habituate. Then organization. The child stores information for later retrieval. The process of rehearsal and integrated rehearsal aids in the long-term storage of information. So repeating, the child repeats it to himself, and a lot of people think that's what they're doing when they're saying words, or they're talking to themselves, or they're repeating the same words over and over again, or they're integrating the rehearsal by playing and talking at the same time as they're doing whatever the play is. It aids in them remembering the language structure. So early perceptual development. You have no, this is all part of perceptual development. So number one is growth, the 4 aspects. Number 2 is stimulation, and you have 2 types. Number 3 is habituation, and number 4 is organization. Those are the 4 stages of perceptual development. And as they get older, they do these better and better. Okay. Let's see. I have a movie coming up, so I'm just hoping. Oh, there it is. Woo! I need a break. Okay. So what is it that a child needs for speech and language development? They have to be able to attend selectively. So they have to, get rid of all of that extra noise, and they have to listen to speech. And as you already know, babies do this very, very early. They have to be able to discriminate the phonemes of the native language. Okay? They have to remember, if you believe in the universals, then they have to be able to suppress all those other sounds that they may have universal rules for, and discriminate the phonemes of a native language. Or even if you don't believe in the universal, you still have to discriminate what's a phoneme in the native language. They have to hold that speech sound sequence in correct order. They have to process it and put it in the correct order. And in order to hold it in the sequence, they have to be able to discriminate speech sounds, which is different. This is the native language, what sounds are in the native language, versus, let's say, noises. They have to discriminate speech sounds, like a B versus a K. And then they have to compare a sound sequence to a stored model. So they look at the sound sequence of dog, D-O-G, or D-O-G, to what they already have stored in their brain. And then they also have to discriminate intonational patterns. These aren't necessarily in order, because all of this happens simultaneously. Like the intonational patterns, the discrimination of the speech sounds, the sound sequence, all of that happens simultaneously. In terms of this, well, they have to develop their perceptual and cognitive skills to be able to differentiate faces and to know their mother's voices. They understand their mother's voices even before they can differentiate their mother's voice over others' voices, even before they know the word mama. So later they attach the word mama to their mother. But they know their moms through the mother's smell, through the mother's voice and face. So all of that is even earlier than a lot of this. So oh, number 5. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, number 5. No, not necessarily. That doesn't really. They definitely can. Yes, if mama, if you call mama, you say mama, or mamas say mama. Like I might say, oh, you love mama. Oh, you know, I tell Buddy, I say, you know, Buddy calls me my dog. I always tell Buddy I'm his mama. I'm your mama. That type of thing. Then yes, when the child begins to do number 5, yes, then the child will be able to know the word to the person, mama. Yes. Oh, well then yes. See, everybody, dada, they're just probably saying dada to anybody. They may say dada to a woman. I don't, you know, at that point, that they're just experimenting. And dada is probably, what they call a proto word. It's not a real word. It's a word between babble and a word. Yes. But don't tell your daddy that. That's right. They haven't sorted it out yet. Are you a Piagetian, Brad? I know. There's so many to choose from. And listen, I'm only giving you just a little touch of them. You'll have more information about the different theorists in graduate school. It just lets you know how much we don't know. That's what it says. It lets you know how much we don't know. Okay? Okay. Following conclusions. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, cognition or language? I don't know. It depends on what you want to believe. But right now, you know, I just when I work with children as a therapist, I go with whatever seems to work best for that child. If they're really low functioning, you know, they have absolutely no words, they don't seem to even know how to play, I go Piagetian. If they have some play skills going on, then I switch off and I go social interactionist. If they're a little bit older and they need some grammar kinds of exercises, then I go Chomsky, syntactical. So for me, it is based upon the needs of the child. So you don't have to be in one person's camp, because the children you get will have already gone past a lot of these stages. And what you have to decide is which approach you will use. If you're going to become a researcher, then this becomes important for you to decide which camp you're going to be in. But as a therapist, you may go into all the different camps based on what is best for your client. That's why you have to be familiar with several of them. Piagetians, cognition, Vygotskyans, feel that language for social interactionists. And there's a whole chapter on social interactionists, and we will go over that on another time. So both cognitive and perceptual prerequisites are needed for early language to emerge. Now, I think everybody recognizes that you must have certain, you must have eye gaze. You must have attention. I mean, without eye gaze, how do you have attention, right? You must have you and the child looking at the same joint attention, looking at the same object. So those are all cognitive and perceptual precursors. Even the social interactionists recognize that. The fight is about what is most important, what is dominant. not that cognition isn't needed. So even with cognition, Piaget isn't saying language isn't important, that language doesn't happen. What Piaget is saying that cognition, that cognition builds language. So if you want to build language, you work on their ability to problem solve. You will build language. People who think language is first, well, if you build a vocabulary, it will help them with their cognition. So deficits in cognition for kids who have cognitive impairment. Oh, I'm so surprised I wrote that word. I don't even use it anymore. And in perceptual skills, like severe learning disabilities. So severe learning disabilities, kids with LD, they don't necessarily have problems with cognition. They have problems with perceptual skills. So severe learning disabilities or sensory deficits are clearly related to language development. So we know cognitive skills and perceptual skills are related to language development. In terms of the theories, it depends. The theorists decide which area they think is the most dominant. All right, woo woo. All right, now, I have to put this. Let me show you how to do this. I will put this link into the chat box, so I have to go get it. I'm so sorry. I usually have it already, but I didn't do it this time. I can't believe that I don't have it. Hold on before I give you the, let me open this up. Oh, 7:33. Let's see. We're going to do this because I also want you to work on something else, MLUs. Here it is. Oh my goodness, where am I? Oh, come on. Okay. All right, so here is the link. I mean, you can go to YouTube. I'm going to play it on the screen here. Now, I'm going to tell you that the timing may be off. You're going to look at it on your computer. I won't be able to control your computer. I can only control mine. I will say to you, well, you're going to go to the end. It's about 10 minutes. And look at this particular, look at this particular, it's a TED Talk video. And then you will come back to class and we will just talk about it a little bit, okay? So this is Patricia Kuhl, one of my favorite speakers from University of Washington. I don't know where she is now, but at that time she was at University of Washington, and I wish I was there doing the research with her. But anyway, all right. So let's see. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. I got to figure out. Let's see. Is it this one? Yes. And you're going to see it on your computer. Oh no, why is that doing that? Oh no, that's not what I wanted. This is not good. Let's see what happens. All right. So now, you are now seeing our updated video page design. We don't want that. So I'm going to close it. It won't let me do anything. So what I'm going to do now is to go into, find another link. That was the link I used. Okay, cool. Kuhl. Here she is right here. Alrighty, let me get her link. See if it'll show up. Yeah. Alright, I'm going to try this again. Wait a second. Let me see if I have the right link, Cody. Why isn't it doing it? Oh, yeah. Click on that link and just watch it on your own. I was going to try to watch it from here, but it's not doing it. So click on this link and watch it on your own and then come back to class. I'm going to work on this. They've changed something. Okay. Because it worked the other day. Okay. Why isn't that work? You're seeing our updated video page. I'm going to turn. Okay. Is everybody going to watch independently? I just want to be sure. Okay, good. All right. So I will see you here at 7:38, 48, about 7:50. Okay, 7:50. Okay, let's see here if I do this. Hello, are you with me? What do you think? I know. Every time I look at that, yes. Much more brain research has come out now, and that chart that she showed you, you know how learning language, how as you get older it just goes down, down, down. They have found that even though we diminish our brain's plasticity, oh, very good, Susan. That sounds good. Ready to say exactly what Susan is talking about. Our brain's plasticity, even though it gets lower as we get older, it still exists. So therefore, even someone as old as myself can learn new things, just at a slower pace. They used to think that once you reach a certain age, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that you know, you're just pretty much done for. But they're finding that keeping the brain active, that you can do many more things than what they thought the brain could do earlier, even at an older age. So I was very happy to hear that. And, you know, I am doing some things with the senior citizens to help prevent dementia. I'm doing some brain activities. I'm doing research projects on that. So far, the results have been good, but you have to follow people for a long time to determine whether or not your exercises help prevent dementia. So, you know, I have a control group and an experimental group. But the same thing with babies. Learning about the baby's brain and how babies learn can give us insight also into the adult brain. So I just find this so fascinating of what's going on in research right now. Oh, I'll have to read that. Who is this? Oh, gosh. Who is this? Kristen. This is Susan. Susan, will you send me that name? I don't know that name. Will you send me that name on my text so I can look at it, look at her stuff? But now tell me, what did you think about the babies learning the Mandarin after a few sessions at 8 months? English babies, how quickly they were able to pick it up. In terms of our theories, what does that say to you about which of the theories? Does that support a theory? Oh, yeah. Well, no, not that. Well, after that, that's good, Bradley. That's my next question. But, yeah, she tickles me. But about the lad. Well, yes. But, Chomsky, in terms of the lad, he was speaking more in terms of grammatical structures. Well, they were learning words. So, that was my next thing. That must be Bradley, but Bradley was ahead of me. But yes, they were learning words. I thought that was amazing that the babies could learn it so quickly. English babies, very early. So that sort of gives support to some of the nativists, right? I wasn't thinking specifically the lad, but the nativists, that there are some innate things also that may say something about the universal sounds, universal laws in terms of babies. Because remember, there's a different intonational pattern that this baby had to pick up. So the baby had to pick up the statistics of the Mandarin language as well as maintain the statistics of the English language. However, had the baby no longer heard English, the baby would have suppressed the English statistics and maintained the Mandarin statistics, or the different features that are within the Mandarin language. But just being able to switch so easily is just amazing. And then the other interesting thing, too, was that for babies, they did not learn this new language. No, that was Ellen asking that. This new language through TV or audio. They did two. They did audio only, and then TV, visual, and audio. So it takes human contact for babies. Now, adults can, of course, learn through listening to an audio or audio video, but she's talking about that social interaction that is needed by babies. So there we get into the social interactionist theory, the pragmatics, having a person there, having it be useful, meaningful. Whatever meaningful could be just fun for the baby. It's not, doesn't necessarily have to be useful. But so we got the nativist part, we got the social interactionist part, and then you can throw in the behaviorist, because there is the reinforcement through the parent interacting with the child. Yes, it is. That's true. We can definitely learn it easier if we're immersed in it versus just the tape. If you go over to the country without judgment, that's right. And without saying to themselves, oh, this is hard. This is too hard. So I just find her work amazing in dealing with the and how babies learn language, and how we can maybe now do brain-based. So when you think of brain-based activities, what are you thinking of then in terms of theories? What are you thinking of? Oh, and the woman, the late Piaget, cognitive, yes, yes. Patricia Kuhl said that we will be able to develop brain-based activities with our research that could help children with language impairments. That could even help adults. So yes, we're talking about cognitive, when people say brain-based activities, or anything that can stimulate the brain, either visual stimulation, auditory stimulation. I mean, that's where these computer activities now are coming up, these brain-based activities, because of some of her research, because of research from other labs as well, not just what that is. For kids, okay, you can, if you want to talk about what they do for the computers now, they have these iPad apps where now we use with our language delayed children, where they have to find where something is. So they have to follow the maze of where something is, and then when they get to the maze, they say, in the house, but they got to find the house. So they incorporate cognitive problem solving with the language, brain-based. Yeah. I do it with adults. We do memory activities, computerized memory activities. We look at, the Sudoku kind of things. That's a brain-based activity. You're using all different kinds of senses, different areas of the brain. You remember the picture she showed of the brain? If you remember, it wasn't just one part of the brain. Yes, there were several parts of the brain that lit up when the child produced or heard words. It's just not one area. There were several integrated areas of the brain that lit up, and that's what she means by brain-based. Using all the different areas, we're using different areas of the brain to help a child to learn language. Crossword and jigsaw puzzles. Now, there have been some questions about how brain-based those are, Susan, but yes, they're more on the lower end in terms of helping people. But there are some research scientists say that people need to do a little bit more than just the crossword puzzle. So I've been investigating what kinds of activities actually help. I've been working with adults now. I started out working with children, and now I'm doing adults. So I thought you would enjoy Dr. Cool. Okay, now I got to go back to Piaget. So Piaget was also into babies and, trying to figure out, how it is that these children learn language. And so Piaget's model of language development is a strong cognitive model. Cognition is responsible for language acquisition, and cognitive knowledge is the basis for semantics, for word meanings, for vocabulary. So understanding what something does. That's how a child learns vocabulary. So he's doing it. He's understanding what's happening, the function of it, that helps a child learn words. Cognitive growth, according to Piaget, is responsible for language. So as a child goes through his stages of object permanence, causality, as the child goes through all of those stages, that is cognitive growth. And therefore his language gets stronger and stronger throughout the stages because there is cognitive growth. If there isn't cognitive growth, the language won't get stronger. And their big example is our children who have cognitive impairment. Their cognitive growth is not strong. So therefore, their language slows and they don't develop but at a certain level. So language is the evidence that there is cognitive growth, but you need the cognitive growth to have language. The child develops egocentric speech or self-talk, then participates in social interaction. So your cognitive growth comes, your language development, and then the social interaction. So that's very different from the social interactionists that say, oh, no, 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 no. You have to have the social interaction which develops the language, and then your cognition grows because that need to communicate with that person is so strong. So here are some of Piaget's stages. You have the sensory motor stage, and I picked out some of the concepts that I think are important. You have object permanence. It starts at about 12 months. It can be 8 months. So, although your child was 8 weeks, sorry. 8 to 12 months is when object permanence comes in. Here, a child will look for an object when hidden. At 12 to 18 months, object permanence gets even more advanced, and at 18 to 24 months, the child has a mental image of an object. Now, let me tell you this. This is too detailed. I'm not going to say what happens at 8 to 12 months, what happens at 12 to 18 months, and what happens at 18 to 24 months. I just wouldn't do that to you. But you need to understand that if I say that a child has a mental image of an object that is completely stored, you will recognize that as object permanence. If I say that a child looks for an object, you will recognize that as object permanence. If I say follow steps to find an object, you will recognize that as object permanence. Causality. But what Piaget wanted you to know, that in his first stage, which is sensory motor stage, which goes from, I guess it starts at 8 to 24 months, the sensory motor stage, that there are levels within that sensory motor stage. So at 8 to 12 months, he knows that other people can cause activities, and by the time he reaches 24 months, he can represent objects and that what their effects will be like in his head. So he already knows, without seeing it, that he can throw a ball. He represents what, that fun, that image of throwing the ball in his head. Okay? There are stages of causality, and there are stages of means ends. At 8 to 12 months, he will plan intentional behaviors. He'll push Dad's hand to do certain things. He will try to use a banana as a hammer, like hitting a banana on the table, and also a hammer, he'll take it and hit it on the table. He's experimenting to figure out how to work with objects. And at 18 to 24 months, he can mentally think about a goal and plan an activity to achieve that goal. And you gotta just take him out, to pull him out. I'm sorry, my dog will only go out with me. He refuses to go outside unless I take him. But I have to finish this class before I can take him outside. I don't know. He's spoiled. So here are all of the different stages for means ends. I just need for you to know that if I say any one of these things, I won't ask you the ages, that you'll know that I'm talking about means ends. Imitation. He will imitate some behaviors that he has not spontaneously produced. So that's example like, babble. If a child has done ba, 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 then if you say ba, he can do ba. But around 8 to 12 months, you might can say rabbit, and he may say rabbit. He may try to do it even though he has not produced the word rabbit on his own or produced babble that sounds like rabbit on his own. So he can imitate behaviors he has not spontaneously produced. And that is very important, that he can imitate new things, because that helps him to learn new words. 12 to 18 months, he will do all kinds of imitation. He'll imitate more than just words. Maybe he'll try to imitate a phrase or try to imitate a sentence. He may leave out some of the words, but he's just doing as much imitation as he can to try to understand his world. And 18 to 24 months, he can imitate based on images in his memory. So you don't have to say moo. You can just ask him, what does a cow sound? What sound does a cow make? And he can pull up the imitation that he did earlier, moo, and say moo, or dogs, woof, woof, or bow wow, however you've taught him, however you've shown him how to do it, the imitation. So by the time they're 18 months, you don't have to say it first, or 24 months. You don't have to say it first. You can just say, what sound does a cow make? And he'll say, moo. You know, versus earlier at 12 months, you have to say moo. A cow says moo, and then the kid will say moo. So there are different stages of imitation. And all of these are in that first stage of sensory motor. Different stages of play. All the way from just looking for toys that are not in sight to symbolic play, to pretend play. So by the time they're 24 months, they are into pretend play. 807. Another aspect of sensory motor stage, 0 to 24 months, you can see we're only going the first 2 years of life. The first 2 years of life are so important. And I beg you, it is that time where they are delightful and annoying. Do you know 2-year-olds are 18 months to 2 years are at the highest risk of abuse? Okay? Because they're not able to communicate in a way that many adults are patient to try to understand. If you have them in a daycare, the daycare people, you know, the kids may not be able to tell you, so they may not be as kind to your child because they know no one will tell. So you really want to be so careful in this age in terms of because their ability to communicate is so limited between 0 and 24 months. So I want you to pay, you know, attention and be really receptive to their needs and not be so reactive to their tantrums, because this is the period of tantrum between 18 and 24 months, or even after that, but 18 and 24 months, the statistics that I read, that this is the age of highest risk of abuse. So 8 to 12 months, babbling but may produce words. So here you're going to have a mixture of babble and words. 12 to 18 months, you have your meaningful words. They really intend to communicate, but here, even at this age, nonverbal. I also use gestures to help them communicate, early sign language. I use being bilingual, whether it's sign language and words, that helps the brain. If you're bilingual, teach them both languages. That's not going to hurt. That's only going to help. 18 to 24 months, they start to imitate and spontaneously produce one and or two-word utterances. Okay? So all of this is the sensory motor stage of Piaget. Okay? That's his first stage. Now, Piaget had the age range of 8 to 24 months. But you don't want to be bound by ages, because there are variations in the development. Kids, as you saw in the MLU, it's like a whole year's difference. So the same thing too, whenever they're very young, that there are going to be a lot of variations. I like to look at Piaget as stages when I'm dealing with very low functioning children, just to give me ideas. I don't worry so much about the age. Some of the concepts like object permanence can be achieved without showing evidence of means end. The child does not require lifting a blanket to understand object permanence. So even though when you look at his chart, it looks like they all run together and happening simultaneously, it does not necessarily mean that. Deferred imitation can occur as early as 9 months, even though Piaget has it listed at 18 to 24 months. So once again, this is a critical review. You've had other researchers look at Piaget's work and saw some weaknesses in it. But But because people cite Piaget all the time, it is groundbreaking research. You'll see Piaget's work in almost every language book that talks about language in young children. You will see his work somewhere. So it is very important to know Piaget and his work. Cognitive development will vary because there is a dependency between biology and interaction within the environment. So therefore, his stages should not be taken so seriously, the ages. The general time frame of cognitive abilities is good, like from 0 to 24 months. And then he has 22 years to 4 years. You'll see the other stages. But variation in the specific time frames has been noted. So between 0 to 24 months, there will be variations as to when kids will develop those particular cognitive skills in the sensory motor stage. 8:13, trying to make it. Okay, let me see where I'm going to stop. Oh, I'm going to stop right there in a minute and see how far. Okay. I'm going to stop at McGurk. All right. How does sensory motor stage, the first 2 years, relate to language? Well, you have object permanence. So object permanence, according to Piaget, is when a child will say their first words. So that's how it relates to language. So the semantic function that it will include will be disappearance, appearance and disappearance. It goes away, but it can come back. First word production. That I can maintain this symbol in my head of daddy because daddy will return. And it will be my daddy, not just any dada. And when they say dada and they're pointing to everyone, we really don't know if that is a word at that point. It just could be babble. But the pointing is real. Dada could just mean person. There's all kinds of questions about when kids say their first words. Well, but in general, most people think it happens between 10 to 14, 11 to 14 months. Some kids as early as 10, but I've never met a 10-month-old who had a real word. Maybe a proto. Okay, causality. Child's ability to understand verbs. So that's how it relates to language. That's why you want to teach causality. Okay? That you can, like causality for me, this is what I did for that little boy who had, what did he have? Alcohol syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome. His mother drank heavily during the pregnancy, and he came out as fetal alcohol syndrome. And I think I told you, I think it was this class that they didn't want to do anything with him in the schools. And I just said, no, if people can teach, animals to do tricks, I don't know why we can't teach this little boy something. And so my first thing was causality with him. And I would have him take my hand to get an object. I give him the object. Then I put the object in a place. I would say, I would grab his hand and then go to the object, take my hand, let him, put his hand on top of my hand. I would have to show him to take my hand to get the object, and then I would give it to him. And, I had to do a lot of distancing in order for him to grasp it. But eventually, he got the idea when the grandfather told me, he took my hand and took me to the refrigerator. So I knew this child had causality. And I knew from then I could do verbs. So I would say, go, go. I did different verbs. So I used Piaget's theories, his model, to help me plan my therapy for this very low functioning child. Yeah. Means end is language intent. That I intend to do something here. So with means end, because the child is thinking about, if I pull a string, I'm making connections. I'm making connections. Pull a string, and this toy will come toward me, will roll. If I pull the string and run, the toy will roll faster. There's a connection there. So now we can do two-word utterances, because they understand that I can connect two things to make us, to get my parent to do something. I don't have to use one word. I can make it clearer if I do two words, the connection of two words. So according to Piaget, these cognitive skills are related to language. So object permanent, before they can do first words, according to him, they have to understand that an object still exists, even if I don't see it. In order to understand verbs, they have to understand that I can do something. There is a relationship between people and what I need, semantic relations. And then means in would be the emergence of two-word utterances. Now, Brad, you can find, weaknesses in this, in any one of you, and I think that's great, because there are. But these were his ideas. And somebody has to start it, and then what we do is come in and improve it. But somebody has to be the first person to get it going. And those excellent ideas. Imitation. This is a cognitive skill, okay? Imitation in itself is a cognitive skill, not a language skill. It's a cognitive skill. How does it help with language? Gestural development, sign language, imitating gestures. Naming, imitating words. It helps with the function of saying the function of the object. Deferred imitation, because they can imitate, you doing things with the object. Symbolic function. They can remember the imitation later on. That makes it symbolic. Okay? The imitation of a word. Okay, play is also a cognitive skill. It's not a language skill. Play, the child begins to have a lot of variations in play experiences. So that's why that's why preschool set up all these different stations for children to go to, because the more varied the play, the more varied the language. Symbolic play, being able to pretend, being able to take a baby doll and pretend that it's a real baby, comb his hair, feed it, even though there's nothing in the bowl, pretending their food is in the bowl or there's something in the bottle. All of that helps with the production of meaningful words, help with the production of putting words together. So sensory motor and language, that first 24 months are very much related, according to the cognitivists. All right. So learning words, 16 to 19 months, very, very critical. 16 to 19 months for word learning. So try to remember that. Because now, through all that early development, all that early cognitive development, social interaction, the neurons are insulated. They're bigger. You have more connections going on. The temporal and parietal lobes are working together. The parietal lobe gets in the sensory information. The temporal lobe is the understanding, auditory cortex is in the temporal lobe. It's the understanding of language. The parietal lobe would cover all of the senses, you know, what you're seeing and feeling. And the parietal occipital lobe also does with vision. But the parietal lobe helps to interpret that vision as well. So in other neural systems, help the child to remember and learn words. Also, visual perception helps listeners to perceive speech, even when the auditory signal has been degraded. So even though there may be a little bit of noise in the room, or the person isn't talking as clearly, the child learns to expect certain things based on what they see, and are looking very closely at your lips. And so then we get into something called the McGurk effect. And it is through the McGurk effect that some researchers believe that children use these visual cues to determine speech sounds produced by others. So are you familiar with the McGurk effect? McGurk effect. All right. So this will be a very interesting video then. And we'll talk about it later. But I want you to look at it. It's only about 3 minutes long, and you can look at it if you feel like you don't have time because your test is coming up, and you want to look at it just before class. The next time we meet, you can do it then, but look at this video so you can copy that. You have a quiz coming up at 8:30 to 9. It is an MLU. You can do this in about 10 minutes, really. You can work individually or you can work as a group. It is in your assessment section under quiz 3. It's not in lockdown browser, so you can open up anything, you know. You can come back to the classroom, so you can have 2 windows open. You can have the assessment open, you can have the classroom open, and you can talk to each other about what you think the morphemes are, what you think the MLU is. You can't ask me because this is a quiz, but you can talk to each other. This is a quiz, so 70% or above is all you need, so you can make mistakes. You don't have to get perfect. All I'm looking for is you to get that 1 point. All right? Any questions? So do your quiz, look at this video, and I'll have a lot to discuss with you next week in terms of your quizzes and your tests and the language sample. It's a lot to do next week. You can do the video tonight, yes, or you can do it, you know, just before class next week. It's whatever you feel you have time to do. So it's 8:25 now. The video is about 3 minutes, and it's a very interesting video. You can rest a little bit and take your test at 8:30. Your test will open at 8:30. I am going to get out of the classroom, but you can stay in the classroom and help each other with the test. It's MLU, Susan. Well, you're not. All right, Nancy. It was the mean length of utterance. So maybe I didn't say it. Oh. I mean, you don't have a test. You don't have a test this coming weekend. Please say no, because I'm not ready for a test this weekend. Is there a test this weekend? Okay, thank you. All right. But the quiz tonight, oh, does it? Okay, well, I may have made some corrections on the quiz. I think I made some, what was it? Did I make some revisions on the syllabus, I mean? Right, yes. Thank you, Bradley. Yes. Thank you, yeah. So I guess then, ooh, so the test for the July 8th and 9th will be everything that we've discussed. Yeah, we always have exams, as I think I discussed in class. All your exams are over the weekend. Yeah, all your exams are over the weekend. None of your exams are during the class period. And I have found that the students have said that it was better for them. That the weekend was better. Do you find that to be true? Let me ask this class. So I have one. Yeah, okay. So I have four. Okay. That's what I have found. But on the syllabus, I put it during the class date because generally what I usually do is I ask students, but I didn't ask y'all. Oh, I can't open it that early, though. I can't open it Friday a.m. No, sorry. And why is Friday better? I mean, I don't know if I can have it ready. That's my only issue. Friday a.m. I might can have it ready Friday p.m. Oh, I see. I see. I may can have it ready Friday p.m. Okay. Honestly, I just can't make it perfect. So, as much as I try. But does everybody get that? All of your tests, even though the syllabus may say the day of the class, on that first day, I think I told all of you that all of your tests will be on the weekend. No, I just think that's too long. I don't know. Let me think, Sarah. I just think it's. Let me think about it, Sarah. Okay. All right. So are you going to be ready? All you have to do now, you already know that other material. All you have to do now is just add this little bit of information that I've given you and a little bit of information that I give you next week. So you're only adding chapter, 5 and chapter 6 maybe, Ode to 2. Okay? You will have to do, usually I have you do an MLU to make sure you understand it. I may have some grammatical morphemes to make sure you understand that. So are y'all coming back here to do your quiz? I'm going to check out. Is that okay if I check out? You don't need me. All right, so I'm going to say good night, class, everyone. I will. And Sarah kind of text me, about extending the test.